You ever meet someone who just feels off? Like they're charming as hell, but something in your gut says don't trust this person. Maybe they tell stories where they're always the victim, even when they clearly screwed up. Or they seem to enjoy other people's drama a little too much. Like they're watching a soap opera instead of real human suffering. Or they're weirdly good at getting what they want from people, always knowing exactly what to say to make someone feel special, then dropping them the moment they're not useful anymore. Maybe it's that coworker who takes credit for everyone else's ideas but somehow makes it seem like they're just being a good leader. Or that friend who never asks how you're doing but always has some crisis that requires your immediate attention. Congratulations. You might have met someone high in what psychologists call the Dark Triad. 3 personality traits that sound like comic book villains but are actually way more common than you think. And here's the uncomfortable question that's going to sit with you for the next 11 minutes. What if that person is you? This is exactly why I built the council.chat. Because most personality tests online are absolute garbage. They're either way too obvious, like, do you enjoy hurting people? Yes or no? Or they just tell you what you want to hear. Congratulations, you're a natural-born leader. Yeah, so is everyone else who took your test, apparently. The Dark Triad traits? They're sneaky as hell. People high in narcissism don't usually think they're narcissists. They think they're just confident, just naturally talented, just able to see things other people can't. People high in Machiavellianism don't think they're manipulative. They think they're strategic, realistic, just better at understanding how the world actually works. And people high in psychopathy, they don't think they're callous. They think they're rational, logical, not weighed down by unnecessary emotions like everyone else. You need something that actually knows your psychology and won't let you bullshit yourself. The Council has 9 different AI advisors who remember your entire conversation history and use real personality science to call out your blind spots. Take the personality calibration at the Council.chat. 2 minutes. No credit card needed. It'll show you exactly where you land on these traits, and more importantly, what that actually means for your relationships, your career, and your decisions. Because self-knowledge isn't always comfortable, but it's always useful. The Council.chat, link in the description. So what exactly is the Dark Triad? It's 3 personality traits that cluster together like a psychological boy band from hell: narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism. The name sounds dramatic, but these aren't clinical disorders we're talking about. They're personality dimensions that everyone has to some degree. Think of them like sliders on a mixing board. We all have some level of each trait. The question is, how high are your sliders turned up? Narcissism is grandiosity and entitlement. It's thinking you're more special, more talented, more deserving than other people. It's the person who genuinely believes their problems are more important than everyone else's. Not because they're selfish, but because they literally can't imagine that other people's inner lives are as rich and complex as their own. Psychopathy is callousness and impulsivity. It's having trouble feeling empathy and making decisions without thinking about consequences. It's not about being a serial killer. It's about being able to fire someone right before Christmas and then go enjoy a nice dinner without thinking about their kids. Machiavellianism is manipulation and cynicism. It's viewing relationships as transactions and believing that people are basically selfish when you scratch the surface. It's assuming everyone has ulterior motives because that's how your brain works. Here's what's wild. Researchers like Delroy Paulhus at the University of British Columbia found these 3 traits correlate with each other. People high in one tend to be higher in the others. But they're also distinct. You can be a grandiose narcissist who genuinely cares about people, just as long as they recognize how amazing you are. You can be Machiavellian but still feel guilt about your manipulative tendencies. You can have psychopathic traits but channel them into being a trauma surgeon who stays calm under pressure. Now here's the part that'll mess with your head. These traits exist because they work. From an evolutionary perspective, Dark Triad traits can be incredibly adaptive. Think about it. For most of human history, we lived in small tribes where resources were scarce and competition was fierce. Narcissism makes you more likely to take risks and pursue leadership. The narcissistic caveman is the one who says, I can definitely kill that mammoth while everyone else is being cautious. Sometimes he gets trampled, but sometimes he feeds the whole tribe and gets first pick of mates. Psychopathy makes you better at making tough decisions without getting paralyzed by emotions. When the tribe is starving and you need to decide who gets the last of the food, psychopathic traits help you make that call based on logic rather than getting overwhelmed by everyone's suffering. Machiavellianism makes you better at navigating social hierarchies and competition. It's the ability to form strategic alliances, to know who to trust and who to watch out for, to play the social game effectively. A study by Peter Jonasson at the University of Western Sydney found that people higher in Dark Triad traits actually have more sexual partners and are more likely to engage in short-term mating strategies. They're better at self-promotion and often more successful in competitive environments like sales, politics, and entrepreneurship. The dark side, they're also more likely to cheat, lie, manipulate, and leave a trail of damaged relationships behind them. It's like having a sports car with no brakes. Yeah, you might win some races, but you're also going to crash eventually and probably take some innocent bystanders with you. And here's what's really interesting. Our current culture rewards a lot of dark triad behaviors. Social media is basically designed for narcissism. It's a platform for constant self-promotion and validation seeking. Business culture often rewards Machiavellian thinking. It's not personal, it's just business. Could be the motto of high-Mach individuals. Even dating apps can bring out psychopathic tendencies in how we treat other people as disposable options rather than complex human beings. So how do you know if you're high in any of these traits? Let's start with narcissism, and I want you to really be honest with yourself here. Do you find yourself thinking you're more talented than your peers, even when the evidence suggests otherwise? Do you get genuinely confused when people don't immediately recognize your abilities? Like you give someone advice and they don't take it, and you're thinking, are they stupid? Can't they see I obviously know what I'm talking about? Do you feel like you deserve special treatment, or that rules don't really apply to you? Maybe you park in the handicapped spot because you're just running in for a second, or you cut in line because your time is more valuable than other people's. Here's a sneaky one. Do you give advice constantly but rarely ask for it? Narcissists often can't imagine that other people might have insights they don't already have. When someone tells you about their problem, is your first instinct to solve it for them rather than just listen? Do you find yourself steering conversations back to your own experiences? Someone says they had a bad day, and within 30 seconds you're talking about your own problems? For psychopathy, it's not about being a serial killer. It's about emotional callousness. Do you find it hard to feel bad when you hurt someone's feelings? Like, intellectually, you know you should apologize, but you don't actually feel sorry. Do you make decisions based purely on logic without considering how others might be affected? Maybe you cancel plans at the last minute because something better came up, and you're genuinely confused why people are upset since it's obviously the rational choice. Do you get bored easily and need constant stimulation? Can you lie without feeling guilty about it? Not big lies necessarily, but little ones that make your life easier. Do you find other people's emotional reactions excessive or annoying? Machiavellianism is trickier because it's often seen as just being smart about people. Do you find yourself thinking everyone has ulterior motives? When someone does something nice for you, is your first thought, what do they want? Do you approach relationships thinking about what you can get out of them? Not in a conscious evil way, but just automatically calculating the cost-benefit of every interaction. Do you believe that being completely honest is naive? Do you find yourself manipulating situations to your advantage without really thinking about it? Maybe you tell different people different versions of the same story depending on what you want from them. Do you have a hard time trusting people because you assume they're as calculating as you are? Here's where this gets real, and why you should care even if you think these traits are serving you well. If you're high in dark triad traits, you probably think you're doing fine, and you might be. In the short term, you might be successful, attractive, getting what you want from people. But research by Joshua Miller at the University of Georgia shows that people high in these traits struggle with long-term relationships. They have higher divorce rates, more workplace conflicts, and more problems with addiction and impulse control. The issue isn't that you're evil. The issue is that these traits create blind spots that get bigger over time. If you're high in narcissism, you might not realize how your constant need for validation affects other people. Your partner gets tired of always having to make you feel special. Your friends get exhausted by conversations that always become about you. Your coworkers stop bringing you problems because they know you'll just tell them what you would do instead of actually helping. If you're high in psychopathy, you might not understand why people get upset about things that seem trivial to you. You think you're being rational and efficient, but other people experience you as cold and uncaring. You damage relationships without even realizing it because you can't see the emotional impact of your actions. If you're high in Machiavellianism, you might not see how your cynicism pushes people away. You think you're being realistic about human nature, but you create self-fulfilling prophecies where people actually do become transactional with you because that's how you treat them. And here's the kicker. These traits often get worse under stress. When you're feeling threatened or insecure, your dark triad tendencies can spike dramatically. That's when the charming narcissist becomes a rage monster who can't handle any criticism. That's when the calculated Machiavellian becomes actually cruel instead of just strategic. That's when the cool-headed psychopath becomes genuinely dangerous to be around. I've seen this happen to people. They go through a divorce, lose a job, face a health crisis, and suddenly all their worst tendencies get amplified. The people who might have helped them through the crisis get pushed away by the very traits that the person thinks are protecting them. So what do you actually do if you score high on these traits? First, don't panic and don't hate yourself. Having Dark Triad traits doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you human with particular psychological wiring that can be both an asset and a liability. The goal isn't to eliminate these traits completely. That's probably impossible and might not even be desirable. It's to manage them consciously instead of letting them run on autopilot. If you're high in narcissism, practice asking questions instead of giving advice. Force yourself to be curious about other people's perspectives. Set up systems where you get honest feedback regularly. And I mean really honest, not just people telling you what you want to hear. Find people who aren't impressed by you and listen to what they say. This is hard because your instinct is to dismiss people who don't recognize your specialness, but those are exactly the people you need to hear from. Practice celebrating other people's successes without making it about you. When someone gets promoted, don't immediately tell them about the time you got promoted. Just be happy for them. Start small. Can you have a 10-minute conversation where you don't talk about yourself at all? If you're high in psychopathy, you need to intellectualize empathy. You might not feel it naturally, but you can learn to recognize emotional cues and respond appropriately. Practice checking in with people about how your actions affect them. Create rules for yourself about treating others well, even when you don't feel like it. Think of it like following traffic laws. You don't speed not because you feel bad for other drivers, but because the system works better when everyone follows the rules. Set reminders to ask people how they're doing and actually listen to the answer. If you're high in Machiavellianism, challenge your cynical assumptions. Look for evidence that people sometimes act from genuine motives. Practice being vulnerable occasionally, not strategically vulnerable, but actually letting people see you without your guard up. Not everything is a transaction. Sometimes people actually just want to help, and when you treat every kindness as manipulation, you miss out on genuine connection. Try doing something nice for someone with no expectation of return and see how it feels. For all three traits, get into therapy. Not because you're broken, but because these traits create blind spots and you need an outside perspective to see them clearly. Find a therapist who understands personality psychology and won't just try to make you feel better about yourself. You need someone who can call you on your bullshit while still helping you work with your natural tendencies. Let me give you some real-world examples of what this looks like in practice. I know a guy, let's call him Marcus, who's definitely high in narcissism. Brilliant entrepreneur, incredibly charming, genuinely talented, but he burned through 3 business partnerships because he couldn't share credit or admit when he was wrong. His solution wasn't to become less confident. That's what made him successful. Instead, he hired a COO whose job was partly to tell him when he was being an ass. He created systems where other people got public recognition for their work. He scheduled regular meetings where the only agenda was listening to feedback. Still narcissistic, still confident, but now he's channeling it productively. I know a woman, let's call her Sarah, who scored extremely high in psychopathy. She's a trauma surgeon, and her ability to stay calm and make logical decisions under pressure saves lives. But she was struggling in her marriage because she couldn't understand why her husband got upset about things that seemed irrational to her. Her solution was to create emotional check-in rituals. Every day, she asks her husband how he's feeling and listens for 2 minutes, without trying to solve anything. She doesn't feel his emotions, but she's learned to respect them and respond appropriately. Then there's David, high in Machiavellianism, incredibly successful in sales because he can read people and knows exactly what they want to hear. But his friendships were shallow because he approached every relationship like a chess game. He started practicing radical honesty in low-stakes situations, admitting when he didn't know something, sharing his real opinions even when they weren't strategic. It felt weird at first, but he discovered that people actually trusted him more when he wasn't always playing an angle. Look, the Dark Triad isn't about being good or evil. It's about understanding your psychological wiring so you can make better choices. Maybe you're high in these traits and you're crushing it in life. Cool. But ask yourself, are you building anything that lasts? Are your relationships based on genuine connection or just mutual benefit? Are you proud of how you treat people when nobody's watching? Do people miss you when you're gone? Or do they just miss what you do for them? The goal isn't to become a doormat or lose your edge. It's to become someone who can be strategic without being cruel, confident without being entitled, and emotionally tough without being callous. It's about using these traits as tools rather than letting them use you. If you want to know where you actually stand on these traits and dozens of others, go check out the personality calibration at thecouncil.chat. The council won't sugarcoat it, but they'll help you figure out what to do with the results. Because the most dangerous